92.1 WROI, WROI-FM.com. Pleased to welcome by way of telephone this morning, United States Senator from the great state of Indiana, Senator Joe Donnelly. Senator, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me with you today.
Thank you so much for being here today. Senator, quickly, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to start with the events of yesterday, and that being the students throughout the country who, and of course parents who, demonstrated about the Parkland shooting, which was a month ago, and your thoughts on that.
What could be more basic than wanting your kids to be able to go to school safe and come home safe? And I talk to parents every day who say, "Look, I'm at work, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but what I'm thinking about all day is I hope my child is safe." And so I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but with rights come responsibilities, and so we want to try to make it so that these children can be safe in school, whether it is hardening the schools, whether it is working on mental illness, or whether it is expanded background checks, which I voted for time after time. Think of this, that if you buy a gun in Rochester or anywhere in Fulton County or the state at a normal store, you have to have a background check. And the reason for that is to make sure that all your friends and neighbors are safe and that this is done the right way. If you buy it online, there's no restrictions at all. If you buy it at a show, as they call them, you can simply go up to a table, put out the cash, and walk away with a gun. And it doesn't matter if you got out of the Indiana State Prison the day before. It doesn't matter if you have a long record of troubled mental health issues. And so what I'm trying to do is make sure that we protect our Second Amendment rights, and at the same time that we also act responsibly and make sure that everybody can feel safe in their homes. We have another piece of legislation I voted for that didn't pass. It's called No Fly, No Buy. And think of this. What this legislation did was say that if you're on the terrorist watch list and you're not allowed to fly on an airplane anywhere because you're on that list, that you shouldn't then be able to purchase a gun. And we couldn't get that through Congress. These are the most basic things, I think, that we should be able to do, as well as working with mental health. And Indiana has a law that I'm very supportive of, that I've tried to get similar laws here for the federal government. And this law, it's called the red flag law, which says that if you see something that looks really out of place, for instance, this fella down in Florida, Nick Cruz, there was indicator after indicator. And in Indiana, the police can go and confiscate the weapons and then, have a hearing to see about giving them back.
Florida now the first state senator with age of 21. You think that will catch on?
I think it's. I don't know whether we can get that done. It was certainly what was talked about at the president's meeting at the White House with everybody, and it was a really freewheeling discussion. The problem is that 2 days later, everything that was mentioned was then taken off of the table. And so, I don't know that that's a possibility right now, Tom, because like in order of things to get done, what I think should come first, or not even should, but we've gotten 56 votes for before when you need 60, is background checks, so that we can make sure that people don't get a weapon who shouldn't have one, that we can do no fly, no buy, that we can ban bump stocks, which are nothing more than a device to try to turn a weapon into a machine gun. And the machine guns are illegal, but then the device that you can put on, in effect like an aftermarket piece, can turn it into that. And that's legal, and it shouldn't be. And so I am hopeful we can start to make progress on this on a number of fronts. We have to.
Senator, one of the things that I've heard mentioned during this entire conversation from people who are talking about doing something, that maybe both sides could get onto, because there's a lot of political logjam here. But you license a car, you put insurance on it, it's got a VIN number on it, the glass is designed so you can identify it in case of hit and run. You still have a constitutional right to travel.
Right.
But as technology advances, you got to have laws you didn't have in place when me and Tom are riding our horses to do radio.
Absolutely.
So do you think that's something that we're headed towards, not control, not confiscation, but just more regulation for identification and being able to trace things?
Well, I think it also becomes a function of what can you get past, and I don't mean to to say it's this or that, but the reality of what you can pass with the legislature that's in place. And so what I think you can do, the closest you can come to that at this point, are the background checks, which will connect that weapon to the person who purchases it at that time. And so there is an ability to keep it tracked at that point. At a future point, with the way the rules are, it could be sold and then just dispensed of at a gun show or something. But the initial purchase of that weapon, or again the subsequent purchase if it's through a local business, can be tracked. And so it accomplishes much of what you just mentioned, but not all of what you mentioned.
Senator, a lot of things to talk about, but we have a new Secretary of State now, and I believe you might have served in Congress with him.
Well, I did, and he will be coming before us for confirmation, and so I'm going to review his record as a CIA director to see the advice that he gave to the president. We want to make sure that the president can have his team in place, but we also want to make sure it's a team that will function properly. I didn't vote for Rex Tillerson because all of the things that we saw happen is what I was afraid of would happen. That Mr. Tillerson was a terrific businessman who ran ExxonMobil, but didn't have any idea regarding what was involved in the State Department. And that's not to disparage him, it's simply to say his skill set was something else. And so he came in, and there was just a basic, complete lack of function in the department that we saw. Extraordinary disconnection between the State Department and the Defense Department and the President, so that everybody would. It's like one of those things where you all talk to each other on the phone and you say, "Okay, we'll all meet here," and you wind up in 3 different places. Well, that was happening on a regular basis, and so I'm hopeful we can have a program where everybody's on the same page moving forward.
Senator, as I understand it, tell me if I'm wrong, but we got about 30 embassies around the world that we don't even have ambassadors that have been sent up to you folks to okay yet, don't we?
That would be correct. And one of them, in fact, believe it or not, is South Korea, which is possibly one of the biggest hotspots in the world because it's across the street from North Korea. There's one building there. They actually, they use for peace talks because they didn't. Some years ago, they didn't want it to be. We didn't want to have the talks in your country or in this country. So this building they actually built half in North Korea, half in South Korea. So
there's a stripe of paint up the middle of the table, isn't there?
There is. So you could be sitting in South Korea reading a paper and go get your coffee in North Korea at the Keurig machine in the corner.
Senator, something that you all voted on in the Senate, and it's gotten a lot of press. I wanted to ask you about it to see if you could kind of straighten things out. What's the status of Dodd-Frank and banking reform? And because I know Elizabeth Warren was upset about it, but she seems to be upset a lot about things that you do. So why don't you explain this?
Well, that would be correct because what I do is to try to help Indiana and help our economy and help the state move forward. So if you flash back a little bit, I helped write Dodd-Frank. I helped put that together.
You were on the committee, weren't you?
I was on the committee and was one of the people who helped write the legislation, actually. I tried to save the pen I helped write it with, but I think it got thrown out by my wife. But
garage sale item.
Right? That's how it goes. But so we wrote the legislation, and it helped create safety and stability. This legislation, and again, I'm on the banking committee. What it does is it doesn't take anything off, any pressures off, any restrictions off of the biggest banks in the country. But what it does do So one of the things that happened was the regulators interpreted the rules, and so for First Federal in Rochester, for Purdue Credit Union, for Teachers Credit Union, they were given many of the same restrictions that Citibank and J.P. Morgan Chase was given. And so what we did was say, look, let's be more sensible about how things work for our local banks so they can make more loans. That's what this is about.
Finally, Senator, it's almost baseball season.
Yeah, it certainly is. So you'll laugh at this. So this fella who just won, there was a special election in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Right.
And the fellow who won
right.
Is a young guy. He's about 33, 34, and our manager is from Pittsburgh as well. So I sent him a text. I said, hey, congratulations on the great win. Can this kid hit?
Busy days, Senator, right?
It is. We're continuing to work to move forward on this terrible opioid scourge we have. That is something that we work on every single day to try to make sure that our kids can come home safe. And it's creating hope and opportunity and purpose, and then trying to make sure we have the right laws in place. And so we're continuing to push forward on that.
Peru VA Clinic is expanding?
Yes, that's correct, from everything I understand. And in addition to that, we also have the new VA clinic in South Bend for more extensive operations. That's only about an hour away from Fulton County, and it covers everything except inpatient. But there's another place right next door that is a brand new hospital as well. And so I think there's a VA expansion going on in the area there. And then also up in South Bend, we have the new facility there as well.
Senator, we know you have to go. We certainly appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for sharing it with our listeners.
It is my privilege. Thank you so much for letting me be with you, and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody.
And same back at you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
United States Senator Joe Donnelly from the state of Indiana, and a frequent guest here on WROI. We are, of course, also continuing to attempt to get Senator Todd Young on the air with us as well.
Yeah,
from the other United States senator serving from the great state of Indiana.
Yeah, we get some news cuts from him, and we appreciate that. But the invitation is there for him to come on the air because we like to keep the listeners informed about this stuff. We want to give them all sides of it too. That's why I'm glad Jackie comes on as often as she.
Exactly, a lot of ground covered there this morning. Senator continuing his work for the state of Indiana.
Yep.
You know, some people are going to agree with what he's doing. Some people are not.
Yes.
That's called politics.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly. If you can make half the people mad and half of them happy, you're probably where you need to be.
But there was quite, he mentioned this towards the end, there was quite an upset in that Pennsylvania congressional election. Yep. And I'm not sure about how all of that is going to fall out because they had redistricted some of the areas in Pennsylvania, and now I believe that has been disallowed by
that district's going to be gone.
Pennsylvania Supreme Court or something.
Yep.
So
it's going to go away.
What happens now, and how does all of that work out? But
it'll go away, and then the next election they'll have a brand new district they'll vote on.
But President Trump had supported the Republican candidate who did not win that election. It was a very close election.
Yeah,
very close election. Like
800 and some votes.
Point
600
yeah,
and some votes.
It was a very close election, but
it was a 20-point swing from the last
right.
Game, so.
And can he hit? I guess that's the question now.
Exactly.
Baron, as always, thanks.
Thank you, sir. It's 8:14. We'll take a quick look at the weather and remind you that we also have yesterday's Rochester Schools Report and also our interview with Fulton County REMC that we'll be playing this morning.
By the way, too, we'll also talk with Superintendent Jana Vance this morning after the Trading Post program about the school board meeting that was held earlier this week.
Excellent. Very good. 32 degrees in Rochester. Forecast says sunny skies, high of 41. Clear tonight, low of 23. Tomorrow, Friday, is sunny with a high of 40. I didn't have this in my forecast yesterday, and it's disturbing to me. 100% chance of rain, snow, sleet, and maybe freezing rain Friday night with a low of 28. Then Saturday, we have a 60% chance of the same early with a high of 43 Saturday afternoon. Then Saturday night, partly cloudy with a low of 27. Sunday, it's sunny with a high of 51 and a low of 34. Monday, partly sunny, high of 48. Then Monday night, a chance of rain and snow, and we'll see a low around 32. 32 degrees right now in Rochester, and we have 30 down in Peru, 31 up in Argus. Go ahead and give a listen to ABC News now at 92.1 WROI, Rochester, Lake Manitou.